We'll go to Des Moines, Iowa. Frank, welcome to the Line of Fire. You're a Seventh-Day
caller. Your last caller was exactly wrong. As a 58-year-old Seventh-Day Adventist, grew up in the faith. Seventh-Day Adventists do not believe in any way, shape, or form they're the only ones that are going to be saved, as opposed to the Jehovah Witnesses and the 144,000. We do not take that position. There will be all people, Sunday keepers in church, etc. But I think you need to understand, if you want to argue that God didn't dictate to people to follow the Sabbath at creation, we can at least acknowledge he rested on the seventh day. Then at Mount Sinai, he says, remember the seventh day, even though manna was collected. The collection of manna was dictated before Sinai, but he used the word remember. Remember cannot possibly pre-exist the event. Just as your wife would put a reminder note for a dental appointment on your refrigerator, she's not going to remind you of an event that hasn't already happened. And Isaiah 66:22 and 23 says the Sabbath...
Okay, can I just ask one thing? Doesn't God often say, remember when he institutes something? In other words, remember this from this day on? Remember this? Because the other time, it uses two words in Hebrew, zachor and shamor. Zachor is remember, shamor is keep. And there are many things God institutes and says, right, remember this. I'm telling you this, remember it. So you can be told to remember it from the day it's instituted.
But
you have to agree with that.
I guess it would come down to this. If you want to know the truth from a Seventh-day Adventist, I'll give you the unvarnished truth. I guess it depends on your view of the book of Revelation. If you believe it's a preterist view, a historist view, an idealist view, your particular belief on a futurist view, what you believe on that. But I would suggest to you that if the Sabbath is going to be kept in the heaven and in the new earth, wouldn't it stand to reason that God's going to reinstitute his Sabbath and his law on men's hearts just prior to...
Stay right there. Stay right there because we got a break. But it's also that the feasts are going to be kept. So how come Seventh-day Adventists don't keep the rest of the biblical calendar? So I'll come back to you, Frank, on the side of the break.
Oh, God of burning, cleansing flame, send the fire.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get into the Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
All right, so a very good point that Frank from Des Moines, Iowa just raised about Sabbath observance. Even if we put aside the book of Revelation, we can see in some of the prophetic books, the end of the book of Isaiah, that in the millennial kingdom, so when the Lord comes, establishes his kingdom on the earth, which many of us are expecting, 1,000-year reign on the earth, or some would say the world to come, it speaks of the Sabbath being observed. So if it's going to be observed by the whole world in the next age, why not now? The problem is, if you want to argue that, and I have Messianic Jewish friends that argue that, it also talks about new moons, and it also talks about the feasts. For example, Zechariah 14, after Jesus returns, the whole world comes to Jerusalem to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. So my question for many years to Seventh-day Adventists would be, why not the rest of the biblical calendar? So, Frank, with that same logic, and I think it's a great point. I agree with you. It's an important point. Why? What about Passover? 1 Corinthians 5, Paul says, let's observe the Passover. He says it to the Corinthians there. And then we have Feast of Tabernacles clearly kept in the millennial kingdom, Zechariah 14. So why aren't you as a Seventh-day Adventist keeping the entire biblical calendar that God gave to Israel?
Well, first I would suggest to you, I don't intend to dodge your question, I guess, but I would suggest to you that people all through history who were given, who kept the light given, will be in the kingdom. Clearly there will be those who kept Sunday as the truth and the knowledge given them, and they will be included in the kingdom. I have no problem, no issue with that. So that's where I totally disagree with Tom, the caller. We do not believe us Seventh-day Adventists to be some elite group that is only going to heaven. But where this comes down to the brass tacks is the futurist view or the preterist view of Revelation. Some people believe this mark. Some people believe this beast power in Revelation is Nero. It can't be Nero. The 8 clues in Revelation 13 does not point to Nero. It points to one thing. And I would suggest that the mark or the seal of, let's start with the seal of the living God. The only thing that is going to protect you from the mark of the beast that is going to be foisted upon all men, great and small, is the seal of the living God. We would contend that the seal is in the fourth commandment, being that in any good presidential seal is name, title, and territory ruled, which would be, such as President Obama, President of the United States, etc. So the seal of the living God would be God, name, creator, maker, would be his title. His territory ruled would be heavens and earth. So we believe it's going to come down to two systems, the Babylonian system, Israel system, and it's going to be a false bride and a pure bride. One is going to keep the false day that the papacy foisted on us.
All right, so hang on. So in the end, those who don't keep the seventh-day Sabbath will not make it in. They'll be part of the false church.
No, but there will be a call to the world by Elijah, who would promise.
But hang on. You are saying that in the end, just this real simple, in the end, those who do not observe the seventh-day Sabbath will not be part of the true church.
Well, let me ask you this question with a question. When God drew a line in Israel and those who got on the line... Could you give me a yes
or no on this one? You said that
there will be a chance to the last day world to come out of Sunday worship and join.
Okay, so those who are part of Sunday worship are part of the false church. Those who are part of Sunday worship are part of the false church, the Babylon system, correct?
They refuse to come out when they're given...
A simple yes or no, Frank, if you believe this to say.
Yes, if that's a yes.
Okay, so just to be clear,
but I'm telling
Seventh-day Adventists believe that if you worship Sunday, and you set aside Sunday as the Sabbath, that is part of the false church and the Babylon system.
We believe a national day of worship will be set up and instituted in this country, much like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
How about right now, if people say that Sabbath is Sunday and they set that day aside, is that part of the Babylon false system?
No. If they are keeping it today and it's the truth and the light given them and they die tomorrow, I fully expect to see those people in the kingdom.
But the day will come in the future. The day will come in the future, you believe, that will not be the case.
Why are we called the Seventh-Day Adventists? Because we believe in the seventh day and we believe in the Advent or the second coming. So at Christ's second coming, God will reinstitute his law that was given at creation, reminded of at Sinai, and going to be kept in the heaven and the new earth forever. And before he enters in and stops the great controversy between Satan and God that started in heaven, the rebellion that was started in heaven, he will reinstitute his true Sabbath.
All right. But hang on. That's got nothing to do with my question. My question is, you said that there will be an Antichrist system, and they will set up, so those who say, after based on your interpretation, after the Antichrist sets up his system and has a day other than Saturday as the day of worship and rest, those who are not setting apart the seventh-day Sabbath, they will be under the Antichrist, under Babylon, under a false system, correct?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, so clear enough. Hey, we are out of time, Frank. I just wanted you to make yourself clear. So the day will come. The day will come, according to this 58-year Seventh-day Adventist, that if you are under an Antichrist who will make this the world law, that if you are not setting apart the seventh-day Sabbath, that you will then bow down to the mark of the beast. You will be part of the Babylon system, part of the false church. So what our last caller said was not that off. It was not that off. In other words, the idea that the true remnant is the Seventh-day Adventist and that those who are outside of it are not the true church, Frank and our first caller would say, no, that's not the case now, because there's limited light, there's limited revelation and insight, so some people just don't have all the information. Okay, well, it's the truth for everybody. We don't have all the information. That's why we have different groups with different perspectives. But in the end, all right, those who are not keeping the seventh-day Sabbath will not be part of the true church, will be part of the Babylon system. That's why there is great cause for concern as to where this goes. And that's why the more radical elements of Seventh-day Adventists, I've seen their literature, I've seen it, I've read it, would basically say that's the case now. that you're already in a spiritual way to the mark of the beast because you're not keeping the seventh-day Sabbath. All right, at least we're getting issues on the table. And my question never got answered. The biblical calendar that's spoken of in the millennial kingdom is the whole calendar of Israel, including new moons and including the feast days. So why a Sabbath singled out, not the rest? I think that remains a problem. Messianic Jews in that respect are much more consistent by observing all the calendar, not for salvation, but as part of salvation history and honoring the Lord.